Hi everybody, it's Marc Laurenson here from Sydney Astrology School. Thanks for joining me. What I'd like to talk about in this clip is Venus. She's going to go retrograde from Aries back into Pisces again. But what I find interesting about this is that she's about to go retrograde just as Mars makes up its mind to start moving forward. Okay. So she is going from the first sign back into the last sign, so to speak. And there is something back there. There is something back in Pisces territory that she needs to revisit. Could there be something back there that you might find that you have to release or let go of in some kind of way? Is there some forgiveness that needs to happen here? Particularly for yourself. I always find forgiveness is one of those really interesting things because a lot of people think forgiveness is about the other person. But forgiveness is always going to be about a practice that we do on the level of being able to bring somebody else into the picture. But forgiveness is the release of you. It is the release of you from the attachment or the pain or the hurt or the drama of that situation. So when you're forgiving somebody, and Venus going back into Pisces could be about that kind of thing, then it is going to be you coming into a place of finding some inner peace with that. But we'll go into that in a little bit more detail as we get into the clip. But I just want to give you some dates before we actually do that so we know when all this is happening. Okay. So Mars stationed direct on the 23rd or the 24th of February, depending on where you live in the world, and that was at 17 degrees of Cancer. But I'm going to say it's not really going to get its mojo back until probably the second week of March, okay? Because that's when it starts to move forward by a degree, okay? It goes back into Leo on the 17th or the 18th of April. Now, Venus is stationing retrograde on the 1st or the 2nd of March. And that's going to be at 10 degrees of Aries. And then she goes back into Pisces on the 26th or the 27th of March. I find this is kind of interesting because this is roughly the same time that Neptune goes into Aries. Neptune goes into Aries a couple of days after that. So kind of another interesting synchronicity there. Uh, she stations direct at 24 of Pisces, and that's going to be on the 12th or the 13th of April. She goes back into Aries again on the 30th of April or the 1st of May, depending on where you are in the world. And she's going to be retracing her steps. She's going to go back to an area that she's already been through that we've experienced from January 27, 28. She actually moved over that particular area of sky moving forward. And then she goes back right over those degrees that we've already experienced from the 27th to the 28th of April, of January. Sorry, did I say April? If I said April, sorry. Tracing the steps from the 27th to the 28th of January that we've already experienced. Now, another really, really interesting thing about this is that she's going to create one of her star points. And I'll go into that in a bit more detail as we get further into this clip. But that's going to be on the 22nd, 23rd of March. And the star point that she makes is at 2 degrees of Aries. Okay. So let's talk about, let's just talk about her, as as an energy. Uh, and let's talk about her on the level of being in Aries. Uh, I think she's very robust in Aries. She's very gutsy in Aries. I know a lot of people who have Venus in Aries in their natal charts, and they're not backward at coming forward, particularly about things around what they love and what they like. Um, I find a lot of Venus in Aries people are the first ones to actually go, this is not what I ordered, or I don't like the taste of this, or the decor in this room or whatever in this hotel room is not up to my standard, or it's not what I want. You know, how Aries is always about what I want. And Venus is always going to be about pleasure or comfort or taste or beauty or harmony or relationships. So I always find that when Venus is in Aries, we're always very, very conscious about she's always conscious about getting what she wants in this particular area. So again, you know, when you're looking at Venus going through Aries, you have to be very, very conscious of making sure all the beauty, all the harmony, all the relationship, all the comfort, all the taste, touch, smell is really what you want. But again, you have to kind of be careful about this, because sometimes it might come across as a little bit demanding. Sometimes it might come across as a little bit bossy. You know, you kind of got to be a little bit more careful around the tone of what's going on here. But I feel that when you're doing Venus in Aries really, really well, it is about you saying no to things that you don't like, basically, and to be able to embrace all the things that you do, to be able to open up and to be able to say, that's what I like to do, or that's what I like to have, or that's what I like to feel. And to be there, you know, to be there for it, to be able to stick your neck out and to be able to not necessarily back off, um, and to own it, to basically own what's going on in that particular area for yourself. Now she's going to go back into Pisces again, and she's going to go back into an area where it's much more sensitive, or much more, uh, it's a softer area. And it's an area that has no boundary whatsoever. Okay. And so maybe there is something back there, maybe before she goes back into Aries again, where she really starts to, you know, come back into a sense of identity and a sense of her human needs. She might have to go back into an area where she might go into a more of an intuitive place. She might go into a more, I want to say, softer, compassionate place. She might actually go back into an area where she feels in a way that she may have overlooked something on the element of, you know, the area of heart, or the area of compassion, you know, that kind of thing. Maybe there's something back there that she could have actually been a little bit more kinder with. She might go back and she might retrace her steps on the level of redoing something, or you know, to me it always makes me feel that maybe I was a little bit hard in a particular area. Maybe I was a bit cut off in a particular area. Maybe I was a little bit uh, detached or resistant in a particular area. And maybe I have to go back and open my heart up a little bit more there. Maybe I have to come into a place of being able to get in touch with my feelings a little bit more there. Get in touch with the part of me, you know, that really does need to connect a little bit more in a visceral way. So when something retrogrades, particularly Venus, she's always going to go back to reconnect, because Venus is always going to be about connecting. So she's always going to go back and reconnect. Now, I mentioned something earlier about forgiveness. Now, as I said earlier in the clip, I said forgiveness is not necessarily going to be about other people. It is going to be for you. It is about you releasing yourself from something. So this is what I really want to underscore. I want to underscore there's something that you have to release yourself from. There's something you have to detach from or let go. There definitely is. Maybe there is something that you're attached to. Maybe there is something that you feel in a way is not doing me any good. It could actually be a behavior pattern or an attitude. You know, it can be something more habitual. It might be something a little bit more human, you know, on the level of something physical, or it could be a money thing or a work thing or a person thing. It could be that. But I want to say, you know, there might be something in you that has to let it go, has to dissolve it, has to that feeling of that feeling of dissipation. And I feel it's really, really important for you to do this. Wherever you have Pisces in your chart, particularly the last few degrees of Pisces in your chart, wherever that lands, there is going to be something on the level of you being able to come into a softer, kinder, more, I want to say more, a place where you can allow it to be what it needs to be, where you can allow it flow into the area of just taking its own shape or its own form in a way. That becomes really, really important for Pisces. It's that feeling of getting out of your own way. It's that feeling of letting control go and opening up to a higher understanding of this particular area will work it out for itself as long as I get out of the way. Okay. So maybe you have to go back to that. Maybe you have to go back to something that has that involved in it. I think it's really important to be conscious of it over that period of time, when she's retrograding back into Pisces again. When she moves back into Aries, it's going to be a very, very different flavor. When she moves back into Aries, when she's direct again, she's very much going to be back, in the saddle. She's going to be back on the horse. She's going to be there, she's galloping off now and possibly something that she's let go of or released or found some softness or compassion around could be exactly what she needed to do so she could actually move forward with with a sense of purpose and a sense of direction and a sense of that feeling, that Aries feeling of enthusiasm and I want to say that pioneering kind of initiating energy. She needs to let go of something. She needs to go back and let go of something before she can do that well. Okay. So I mentioned she's going to make a star point. Now Venus makes 5 star points in her travels, and she makes a star point every time she comes into the interior conjunction. Back in the old days, it was called the inferior conjunction. The inner planets, Mercury and Venus, they make conjunctions. Um, the interior or the inferior one is the conjunction where she crosses between us and the sun, directly in front of the sun. And then she makes a superior or exterior conjunction when she's crossing behind the sun, on the other side of the sun. Now, she makes a star point every time she makes an interior conjunction. Okay. And so she's going to make an interior conjunction right in front of the sun at 2 degrees of Aries. Okay. And that creates a star point. So every 18 months, she creates a star point and she has like an 8 year cycle where that same star point comes back to itself again within a couple of degrees going backwards um, in an 8 year period of time. So it's going to be at 2 degrees of Aries, as I said. This is the actual star point that she's making. If you want to know more about star points, wonderful Julia Simmons, the CIA, the Cosmic Intelligence Agency, she has great stuff on her website with Ariel Gutman and Gemini Brett and wonderful, wonderful astrologers where they go into the star point understanding and the mathematics behind it all. Um, Wonderful, wonderful site. If you go on to see the CIA, if you want to know more about star points. Um, so the last time she was there making the Aries star point, she was at 4 degrees Aries, so she was 2 degrees away from where she was way back on the 25th of March, 2017. Now, I have to let you in on something here. My sun is at 3 degrees of Aries, okay? So my sun is right at a star point where uh, Venus makes a star point at the moment. And being at 3 degrees of Aries, I got the star point in 2017, and it looks like I'm going to get the star point again as it comes up to 2 degrees of Aries. Okay. And it's very close to my birthday as well. So, what I want to say about this is that 2017 was a huge year for me. Now, I had a lot of stuff going on as far as other transits were concerned as well. But I just want to say the star point had a lot to do with it for sure. 2017 was the year that I moved out of Sydney and I moved up to the Blue Mountains, which is about 2 hours outside of Sydney. And I loved living in the Blue Mountains. Absolutely loved it. Beautiful, beautiful part of Australia. And I moved up there and for lots of reasons. Um, and what happened was I had to change everything to do with the school and my business. And I didn't want to, because up until then, I'd been teaching live. Every week, I'd been teaching my students in a live format. And all my readings were live too. I had my clients come to my home and I would do readings for them live. When I moved up to the Blue Mountains, I thought, as much as I wanted to live there, I thought, well, this is really going to affect my business because people aren't going to want to come up to the Blue Mountains. It was too far away for them. So what happened was everything had to go online, okay? And I didn't want to do this. I really resisted it big time. I truly did because I didn't think, talking to a screen and all that kind of stuff was going to work. But I didn't realize that by doing this, I was opening up a whole new world for me in my school because all of a sudden my school just went gangbusters. From teaching a handful of people, live to being able to teach people all over the world was incredible. And as I said, I didn't want to do it. I resisted it. All my readings went live as well. So I was doing readings for people in Europe. I was doing readings for people in America. My business and my school just went haywire in a really, really good way. So everything expanded, everything exploded. Of course, I made more money, which is very Venusian as well. Also, this particular year was a big year for me going into a major healing around an illness that I had. And I won't go into the details of that, but I had an illness for quite a few years. And 2017 was a huge year when everything started to heal very, very quickly. So interesting to think that 2017 was a year not only of, a lot of the other transits that I was experiencing, but was a star point year for me, a big star point year for me. And it was Venusian. It was Venusian in so many ways. I moved to a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. You want to say my worth and my value expanded big time. Financially, it expanded big time. I just started to feel better about myself. I started to feel better about my life, and I started to get well. I started to get very healthy. So again, if you've got planets anywhere near 2 degrees of Aries or 2 degrees of the cardinal signs, I want to say that you're going to probably in some kind of way go into a place of of I want to go. I feel it's a place of renewal, and I feel it's a place of really expansive, productive kind of renewal at the same time. Now, in traditional astrology, they call a planet at this point in Cazimi. And Cazimi in traditional astrology is exactly that. It's the it's right in the heart of the sun. And so it's getting, it's actually fused in with the sun. And it's really getting the full benefit of the life force and the purpose and the creativity that's involved with the sun as well. Now, it's so interesting because, 2 degrees of Aries, it's not the Aries point. The Aries point is 0 degrees of Aries. But we're going to have Neptune moving into 0 degrees of Aries pretty soon. We're going to have Saturn joining it pretty soon after that. So, you can't help but play around with those kind of ideas coming into it as well. So, what I want to say before I finish up is that have a good look at the houses that the very, very tail end of Pisces is in and the beginning of Aries. I use Placidus charts. So it could be going through two houses. And even if you are using whole sign, it will be two houses going from Aries into Pisces. So look at the houses involved. Look at where you might have to go back. Look at where some releasing is important, particularly in a Venusian way. And when I say a Venusian way, particularly a releasing for peace or equality or justice or harmony or love or connection. Have a good look at what that means and kind of mold it into your life in a way where it is contextual for you, and then look at a way where it can actually start to get excited and start to feel um, to feel really ballsy. I don't know if you could say that word anymore, but ballsy enough, women just as much as men, to be able to use your Venus in a way that's actually going to get you what you need or get you what you want. Don't hold back on it. Life is far, far, far too short to be able to hold back on anything. Basically, you've got to go for everything you want. You've got to go for everything that is important to you. And I think that Venus in Aries is always going to be about that. It's always going to be about making sure that you don't let anything get away from you.